If you've had children, you at one point have ran into the issue of them just munching on action figures. I'm not sure exactly why it is, but from time to time, you'll find like a Batman that has his hands chewed off and then his bat ears have also been chewed off. Like, I clearly feed you. I don't know why you have this incessant need to just chew on action figures. At this point, I might as well just get my kids some chew toys, although that might be crossing a line. I don't know. I just don't understand kids sometimes. But if I find one more action figure with his hands chewed off or a leg missing or a head just popped off, I'm gonna lose it, okay? But anyways, all jokes aside, let's get straight into today's video. There's quite a bit to talk about, and the first release is something that actually has already gone out. There's a ton of different reviews online. Last I checked personally, these were sold out online. You would actually have to go to the physical store and find these. However, I'm going to assume that eventually you may be able to find them online at Target or like at a physical store. However, I just wanted to kind of cover these because, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, this is getting crazy. It's getting heated here. It's not something that we're used to. McFarlane has usually had basically a monopoly over the entire DC license, and we're now starting to see him kind of loosen the grip a little bit. I'm not sure that's because Warner Bros has stepped in and given more opportunity to other manufacturers, or if McFarlane themselves has to okay these type of lines. Maybe it's in their contract somewhere. Regardless, this is insane. We are now supposed to be getting this multi-pack from Jakks that includes some Sonic characters. We'll have Shadow as Batman, you have Silver as Green Lantern, and then you have Sonic himself as the Flash. Now, a couple of these figures will have the ability or a light up feature that is placed on their chest piece. If I'm not mistaken, it's both Shadow and Sonic. I could be wrong on that. I think the Green Lantern doesn't have that feature. It's pretty cool. It's pretty intricate. I've seen a lot of people review these figures and just completely bash that idea because it does make that mid portion of the chest a little bit too thick and round. And, you know, certain people have been upset about that. Also, the limbs are a little bit thicker than your normal Jakks Sonic action figures. So that's something also worth noting. From my understanding, most of this is brand new sculpt. There may be some new things or some reuse here and there, but for the most part, these are supposed to be brand new. However, we're not here to talk about that. You guys know exactly what I'm about to get into. This Darkseid action figure. Now, clearly, this is not meant to scale well with your DC Multiverse action figures because it's just far too small, or at least from the McFarlane universe. However, this may be able to fit in with some old Mattel DC Multiverse action figures or potentially some Mafex or Mezco, because from my understanding, the overseas DC action figures are usually closer to the 6-inch scale. They're closer to the 112, so some of them are even under 6-inch or barely over 6 inches. And from my understanding, I don't actually have confirmation on this, but that Darkseid is supposed to run a little bit bigger because those Jakks Sonic characters usually are about like a little bit over 4 inches, like 4.5. And this Darkseid figure does appear to kind of tower over them. So I'm going to assume that he's a little bit over 6 inches or even closer to 7 inches, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So you can technically have like a little DC display from Jakks, even if you're not a fan of the crossover universe. Like if you don't care about any of the Sonic characters, if you just want the DC figures, you can in reality pick all of these up and make a little mini display. Now, as of the moment of this recording, we don't have confirmation that we'll have any other figures at that 5-inch scale from Jakks, aside from Superman, Cyborg, and Batman. Those are the three that have been officially confirmed. Those are really articulated figures. I think the the Batman and Superman both have about 27 points of articulation. The Cyborg is supposed to have 23 points. The Darkseid, I'm not sure the articulation points here. I went through multiple different descriptions and some of them say different things, but I'm going to assume that it's also in the 20s. As I said, this is groundbreaking, and that Darkseid actually does look really well designed, like great sculpt work. There's a very intricate paint job, which is not something that Jakks is usually known for. So most of their collectibles, it's just the color of the plastic. There's very few paint applications going on, but with this particular figure, it just feels like more of a collectible item. And I already mentioned the articulation, but you can definitely see, from what I can see in the promotional images, you can definitely tell that there's like double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. There's a mid torso articulation. There's also a thigh cut, and then the ankles seem to articulate incredibly well. So I'm very excited. As I said, this isn't something that necessarily scales with anything that McFarlane is doing, and it may not even scale with some of the old Mattel figures, even though I think you can kind of smudge it in there. But at least it's something new, it's something innovative. And here's the crazy thing about it: it took McFarlane to make a proper Darkseid like 4 years. Jakks did it right off the bat. As soon as they got an opportunity to make DC action figures, right off the bat, we're getting a really well designed Darkseid figure. Not to mention, McFarlane has given us the Powers Darkseid, which is a really vibrant, like white and blue color palette. It really sticks out, but it just doesn't feel like everybody's mental image of Darkseid. And then he decides to give us that weird Darkseid that's based on like some old Sega Genesis video game, which is really cool. It's a deep cut, but it's just not what I think people want in their displays. Most people will have either one of those Darkseids, but we're still looking for something that is either closer to his first appearance or closer to like modern day comic books, like New 52, Rebirth era. I think most people have that mental image of Darkseid, at least me personally. I would love to see something like that. And even though that Darkseid that Jakks is announcing is based on their universe, their crossover universe, I still feel like even that version is a more prototypical vision of Darkseid compared to what McFarlane has offered us. So it just goes to show how, as awesome as the McFarlane universe has been, or the DC license has been from McFarlane, there have still been some huge shortcomings, and this is just an absolute prime example of that. This is a phenomenal pack. As I mentioned, $69.99 if you're going through Target. It will include the 3 Sonic characters and then the Darkseid action figure. And as I mentioned, this is just a game changer. This is groundbreaking. We just were not seeing this earlier when McFarlane had acquired the license, and now that he's losing it, it appears there's going to be nothing but utter chaos going on. Next up, I actually wanted to kind of circle back and talk about more Collector Con DC Multiverse action figures. I'm not sure exactly why it is that they're announcing these in like parts, or at least they're being showcased in parts. Not everything was available, or you couldn't actually see all of the listings through the Walmart Collector Con link. So eventually they've kind of been staggering the announcements or the reveals for what's going to be available on October 10th. Mind you, by the time this video goes up, those figures might have already gone up, and if so, I truly apologize. But sometimes there's a little bit of a lag on the channel, but we will be receiving a Dark Flash from the Dark Multiverse. This figure looks amazing. I just have to come out and say it. I know they're probably reusing most of the body mold, but from what I could tell, the forearms are all brand new, as well as the hands. And I couldn't quite tell, but that mid-torso seems a little bit thin compared to previous Flash action figures. I could be wrong on that. It could just be all reused except for the arms and the hands and the head sculpts. But still, it's redesigned enough to where you can't even really tell that it's, you know, being reused or retooled. The head sculpts look absolutely brilliant. Now, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to look like in person, but you have 3 separate head sculpts. You have one with the mouth just wide open. You have one where his teeth are just gritting, like he's grinding his teeth. And then you have a third option, which has kind of a smirk to one side. I love it. You can definitely see that they put a ton of effort when it comes down to like the rotting flesh, and there appears to be a little bit of a wash. A ton of paint is being applied there. It's probably not going to be the cleanest paint job ever because it's a lower end collectible, and that's really why a lot of these manufacturers tend to shy away from too many paint applications. But in this particular case, I like it. I love this figure. There's just so much going on, and I appreciate the fact that even though he probably is reusing a ton of different body parts, he switched it up enough to where we really can't tell. Well, at least personally, I can't tell. The biggest problem here is going to be whether this is a Walmart exclusive. At the moment of this recording, we don't have clarification on that, but usually when it's being offered through the Walmart Collector Con, it is a Walmart exclusive. But let's hope that eventually it gets a wider release, because this is just a phenomenal looking figure. As I mentioned, I love the head sculpts, and it's crazy that in this day and age, when McFarlane appears to be kind of scaling back and offering less and less, we're getting 3 total head sculpts for that base price of $24.99. Next up, they announced a pretty interesting 2-pack that I'm kind of torn on because it is based on the Justice League Black Vengeance storyline, which personally I'm not too familiar with. I don't really have any attachment to that particular storyline, but it's popular enough to get some action figures based on. You're getting a Spectre as well as an Atom Smasher action figure here, and I'm just going to assume that these are mostly reused. Maybe the Spectre got a new cape. If I remember, the original one was a little bit shorter. And was it hard plastic cape? I don't exactly remember, but it does appear to be a wired cloth cape. The figure looks phenomenal. If I'm not mistaken, the original Spectre, you actually had to go through McFarlane's website, and I believe you had to buy the entire wave, or if not, the price point on that figure was absolutely ridiculous. I don't think anybody was picking it up, but now you kind of circle back around. You can pick that particular figure up. The problem is the Atom Smasher, which is repainted to essentially be accurate to the 2-pack or the storyline that it's being based on. But if I'm not mistaken, that's like mostly reuse of the live action Atom Smasher, which I have no problem with, but I don't know, it just seems like a really cheap 2-pack. To me, essentially what you're doing is just getting 2 figures that were not released together or were released in single carded and now putting them in a 2-pack. If I'm not mistaken, also that Spectre might have garnered quite a bit of a following on the secondary market. And I think well, I haven't checked him recently, but the last time I checked him, he was going for astronomically high prices. But now he decides to, instead of just give the collectors what they want, knowing that people are going after this character, he decides to lock it behind a 2-pack. It's kind of an interesting move, primarily because, as I mentioned, these are 2 characters that have been previously released with different color palettes. All he's doing here is just repainting it. I tried to look through the Spectre's body mold, and it appears that it might be the same one. It has like that weird skinny mid-torso with the belt. And then the original movie Smasher also had painted sleeves here. He's just repainting it as a skin color tone because this one doesn't have long sleeves. So it's cool because these are 2 characters that people want, or these are 2 versions of characters that people really want, but it was kind of dirty to put them together in a 2-pack unless they're really connected in the storyline and it makes sense to put them in a 2-pack. I really couldn't honestly tell you. But if you guys are interested, this will also be available through the Walmart Collector Con. And then lastly, and I say lastly, even though it appears like every time I finish a video, there are like 2 to 3 new collectibles being announced for Walmart Collector Con. How dare McFarlane do that? Could he at least let me catch my breath? Could he at least let me like build up some saliva in my mouth to be able to keep track of all this stuff? But we are supposed to be getting the Guardian from the Action Comics. It's a really neat design, though I think the only problem, at least from where I'm standing, is I don't know, it's a little bit too simplistic. Like the color palette is kind of dull. It's a little bit boring. He does come with a shield, but I would have liked a little bit of a wash. Like the art on the back of the box, which obviously we never expect the figure to look anything like the actual art that it's coming from, because usually it's way more intricate in terms of sculpt and paint. But they could have added a little bit of a wash just to bring out some of the details, because even like the muscle texture isn't really defined with this figure, unlike the art where it feels like, you know, the 6 and all the muscles and everything, they're just way more defined and they pop out more. Here they kind of fade into the outfit or the suit. It's a little bit disappointing, but I don't know if we've ever gotten the Guardian in action figure form from McFarlane, so it's nice for him to kind of circle back and give us this particular character. If you guys are interested, it will also be available through the Walmart Collector Con on October 10th, or if it has already been made available, then I guess I'm just spitting buffoonery, you know, way too late. But that's how it usually goes. I fall behind. I did upload a Jakks video, and it did, you know, pretty well, but then I started to get behind on a lot of the news, and I had to play the catch-up game. So there were a couple of days where I didn't really upload too much, but I'm hoping this is it, okay? Because McFarlane just is not having it. He's not taking any breaks. It feels like every time he announces, you know, a couple of different figures, he's ready to announce even more. There are some speculations out there that there are some new Call of Duty action figures. I might have seen some leaked images online or something. It's supposed to be some sort of Call of Duty and Spawn crossover. So If I ever see anything pop up, I'll try to cover that. By the way, that Bat Cycle from, what is it, the Batman and Bat Cycle from the Flash film will be made available through Walmart Collector Con. You guessed it. I don't know why I didn't have that information in my previous video, but yes, it will be made available as a 2-pack, $69.99 if you guys are interested. And then assuming, as I said prior, I think that Batman has already been issued in a different color palette, and then now they're adding the wired soft cape. But there you guys have it. I'm not going to ramble on too much. It feels like I already do that too consistently. If you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to stay tuned because we do it pretty consistently. We like rambling on about action figures. We'll do unboxings. We'll do some news, a little bit of everything, even hunts. I am working on a pretty big hunt for, I don't know, maybe tomorrow or the weekend. We'll see how things play out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys leaving a comment, just letting me know if you guys liked the video or did not like it, or if you agree with something or disagree. It's always cool to get a little bit of feedback. It motivates us to continue making content. Thank you guys. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby. Push your action figures, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.